Hey everybody, this is a review of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney for the DS. Uh, or 3DS. I played the Trilogy edition, the Trilogy re-release where it's all three games bundled together on the 3DS, but it's just the DS game with better graphics. And I like the animation. I've heard some people say they prefer the sprite animation of the originals, and I mean that's just up to preference. I really liked the game though. There's not a lot I can say about it because it's so plot driven that, and I don't really want to spoil anything. But the first I'll just give kind of an overview without spoiling anything. The first case, basically just a tutorial case. It's all right, I guess. I mean, it's a nice introduction. Second case, second case is where the plot gets going. That one I really can't say that much about without giving spoilers, but it gets you more involved, and it kind of continues the bits of story threads that were in the first case. Third case, probably the funniest case in the game. You have to figure out who murdered this actor on this kids TV show about samurais, and there's just a lot of funny characters in that case. You got a grumpy old lady, a really nerdy director guy, mysterious like producer lady, this kid, this other kid, this kid who's a huge fan of the show, who snuck onto the set and saw something he shouldn't have. This girl assistant. I mean, the girl, just a lot of interesting characters in that one. Oh, and then the guy accused too, whose face he looks like he has a freaking lion's mane. There's just a lot of interesting characters in that case. It's probably one of my favorites. The fourth case gives more development. The third case is kind of a filler, in a way. Like there's not a lot of like overall plot development of the whole game because it's split up into different cases that you're solving. Because in case you don't know, you play as Phoenix Wright, who is a defense attorney, and he has to defend his like clients that seem guilty, and he also does investigating and finds evidence, which actually brings into a criticism that I have, but I'll go into that in a minute. The fourth case is the just kind of develops the plot that was established in the first two cases. Develops the prosecutor of the game, Miles Edgeworth, a little bit more, and then and yeah, that's another one that's hard to talk about without like spoiling the overall plot of the whole game. The third one's the only one I can really talk about vaguely without spoiling like the whole general development of the story. And there's also a fifth case. I'll go into that in a minute, but first I'd like to talk about my one real complaint with the game, and that's probably it's similar to my complaint with like with like Professor Layton games. There's certain moments where it's like they want you to do something to progress, and you can't progress until you do it, but the game doesn't make it clear, or the thing they want you to do is like really weird and something that you would probably never think of on your own. And there was just a couple times that happened in my playthrough. It didn't happen that much in the court cases because you can kind of, with most of the court case stuff, you can kind of just keep guessing until you get the right answer. I mean, you get like penalized and stuff, but as long as you like save at a strategic moment, you can just keep retrying it. You just lose a couple. Basically, how it works is in court you get 5 strikes, and then they're like guilty, and then and then you lose. That's basically game over. But like you can save the game when you have, say, 3 strikes left and you have no idea what the answer is. You can save the game, and then, which, although the annoying thing about the Trilogy edition, and I don't know if this is the case on the original, is if you want to save the game mid playthrough, like when you click start and then go to save the game, it automatically like assumes you want to save and quit. So it boots you back to the title screen, and then you have to reselect again. And then when there's like, a lot of games with like story will have moments where just like a save option pops up after a big important event, and it's like, would you like to save? And when it does that, it doesn't give you the option to quit, which is kind of dumb because maybe I want to quit there. You don't know. That's almost like the end of a chapter, I guess. But and I mean that's a complaint with several. There are several games that do that. Like they'll have the save point in between the cutscenes, but they don't let you quit after the save points. You like want to keep going, so the saving is kind of pointless. Uh, and I mean, I guess you can just turn your console off, but like, whatever. That's a really really nitpicky thing, but it's just something I noticed. Go back to my original point. In court, it's fine because you can save at like 3 strikes and then just keep guessing and then reset it back to 3 strikes when you lose by starting from the save point. Uh, but it's during the investigation segments because it's split up into 2 segments. You're in court, you're defending, and then you're out in the field moving around and investigating. And maybe I'm not sure if the investigation segments get better in some of the later games. I've started the second game and it doesn't seem like the investigation segments are all that much better. But I just the investigation segments just do not grab me. Like they're really kind of they're much slower paced. The movement is not as good. Like in Layton you like click the arrows or whatever that point to the next area you want to go to, or sometimes you have to go to a map. But like with Phoenix Wright, it's not a map. It's like you press move, and then there's like like the list of different places you can go to. But depending on where you're at, you can only move to certain other places. So like there's certain areas where it'll be like you're in one room and you have to go back like 3 places just to get to where you want to go, and that slows down the pacing a lot. I'm assuming they probably improved that, like if not in the rest of the initial trilogy, then they improve it in like Dual Destinies or something. Because I played Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. That was my introduction to Phoenix, and in that game the movement was kind of a mix of the 2 systems, and it worked a lot better. Another problem that I would have with the Phoenix Wright segments is occasionally they would want me to do some very specific thing before I could do anything else, so I was forced to just kind of move around and endlessly examine things, and it would bring my it would bring my game it would bring me to a grinding halt where it's just like I'm in the story, I'm doing stuff, and then all of a sudden, well, now what do I do? And then it would, and that's a problem I have with handheld like 3DS games in general, is I get to those points and then I'm not one who likes to waste hours and hours like doing random things until I figure it out. I'll usually look it up if I've spent more than like an hour or 2 on it and I just cannot figure it out. But like I'll get to these points in 3DS games or handheld games where I get there and I'm stuck because I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do next. But and so I need to look it up, but like I never really want to look it up. I guess that's a problem I have with games in general. I just get to a halt, but it was particularly bad with Phoenix Wright because is that a hole in my shirt? No, that's just a thing. It was particularly bad with Phoenix Wright because it's just like this engrossing story, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're just like stopped by this wall of what do I do now? And sometimes it was me being stupid, and when I got the answer, I'm like, oh, duh, I'm an idiot. But sometimes it was just like, game, really? How am I supposed to know that? And that's probably my one big complaint. I don't really like the investigative segments that much. The in-court segments, I never get grinded to that much of a halt. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's not as bad as the investigation segments, which I already kind of don't like to begin with, and then I get stuck at a grinding halt, and it's just like, ugh. But, and then I guess now I'll bring up the 5th case, which was actually released, so the first 3 games were released for the Game Boy Advance in Japan, and then ported to the DS when and they were Japan only on the Game Boy Advance, and then they were ported to the DS. And the first one has a new case added to it, the 5th case, which is a very, very good case. That's the one I just finished today, obviously, because it's the last case of the game. It's kind of separate from the other cases because it doesn't want to do anything that will affect the story of later games. Like Phoenix is working. Phoenix always has like a partner that's helping him, usually a younger girl. And in the rest of the game, it's Maya Fey, the sister of his boss Mia, and and but in this case, it's a girl named Emma whose sister Lana is the chief prosecutor and the one that Phoenix is defending for the murder of a detective. And the case, it gets way more. Like that sounds like spoilers, but that's just like the basic premise of the case. It gets way more complicated and crazy. But other than Edgeworth and Phoenix and this detective named Gumshoe, there's like no characters in common between that case and the other cases. And the other thing about the fifth case is it's really long. Like supposedly the longest case in like any Phoenix Wright game. It's basically its own game. Like the fifth case feels like its own game because they add some DS like touchscreen gimmicks where you can like more thoroughly examine evidence and like spray like this luminol stuff to detect blood traces, and it's more like investigative stuff that's completely different from the other four cases, so which don't use any touchscreen gimmicks because they're GBA remakes. So the fifth case really feels like its own game almost. Like I could review the first four cases and then review the fifth case separately if I wanted to, because the fifth case is like longer. I don't think it's longer than all the first four cases, but it's longer than like the first two, or possibly even the first three. It's a long case, but it's a good case. And well, now that I've kind of given an overview of all the cases, there's a lot of funny characters, but there's also some dark stuff. It's just an interesting game series. You'll laugh, you'll maybe cry. I don't know. I never really cry with media, movies, TV. I don't know. I just don't. It's just not a thing I do. But yeah, I'd recommend it. You can buy all the first three games for I think $30 on the 3DS eShop in the trilogy package, and that's what I did. That's how I got all three games, and yeah, they're a whole lot of fun. So I'd recommend them. Arrivederci!